The Trident's waters churned, a roiling cauldron of mud, blood, and shattered dreams, reflecting a sky bruised purple by dusk. Rhaegar Targaryen, silver hair streaming beneath a black helm studded with rubies, faced Robert Baratheon across the ruby ford. The rebel lord's warhammer gleamed like a thunderbolt, his bellows shaking the air as he cursed Rhaegar for Lyanna Stark's abduction. "You'll die for her, dragon," Robert roared, his antlered helm glinting. The rebel host, Northmen in grey cloaks, Valemen with falcon banners, Riverlanders under Tully trout, clashed with Targaryen loyalists. Dornish spears, led by Sir Arthur Dayne, pierced the rebel flanks, their war cries sharp as their steel. Rhaegar, lithe as a shadowcat, parried Robert's crushing blows, his longsword a flicker of Valyrian steel. In a fatal heartbeat, Robert's eyes flicked to Ned Stark's direwolf banner, a flicker of doubt, perhaps for Lyanna's love, perhaps for the rebellion's cost. Rhaegar's blade found its mark, piercing Robert's breastplate, blood blooming like a rose. Rubies tore from Rhaegar's armor, scattering into the river, glinting like dragonfire as Robert sank to his knees, then fell, his life seeping into the current. The rebel lines buckled. Eddard Stark, blood dripping from a Dornish spear wound in his arm, roared for his Northmen to hold, but Robert's fall broke their spirit. Jon Arryn's Valemen scattered into the hills, Hoster Tully's Riverlanders fled toward Riverrun's walls, and Ned, his grey eyes storm-dark, led his men into the mist, vowing vengeance. Rhaegar stood amidst the carnage, his black armor dented, his hands trembling. Sir Barristan Selmy, white cloak mud-stained, knelt beside him. "The realm is yours, my prince," he said, voice steady despite the slaughter. Rhaegar's violet eyes lingered on the river, Lyanna's face burning in his mind, intertwined with the prophecy of the prince that was promised, a song of ice and fire to save or doom them all. "Not yet," he murmured, sheathing his sword. "Send ravens to King's Landing. Tell my father, Aerys, his reign is ended." King's Landing festered under a blood-red sunset, its streets thick with the stench of fish, smoke, and fear. The Red Keep loomed, its iron portcullis like a dragon's maw. Aerys Roman II, the Mad King, sat hunched on the Iron Throne, its jagged blades gleaming in torchlight. His skeletal hands clawed at scabbed arms, his laughter a jagged edge as he ranted to his pyromancers. "Burn them all, let the traitors roast," he shrieked, convinced Rhaegar's victory masked betrayal. Varys, cloaked in lilac silks, slipped into Rhaegar's chambers at midnight, his powdered face ghostly in the candlelight. "Your father plans to ignite the wildfire caches beneath the city, your grace," he whispered, voice soft as venom. "King's Landing will be ash by dawn." Rhaegar, still in his battle-worn armor, felt ice grip his heart. He summoned the Kingsguard, Sir Jaime Lannister, golden hair dulled by dust, green eyes restless, Sir Barristan Selmy, unyielding as steel, Sir Arthur Dayne, dawn-sheathed but radiant, and marched on the throne room. Aerys cackled as Rhaegar entered, his untrimmed beard tangled, his eyes fever-bright. "You'll not steal my throne, boy," he spat, gesturing to Rossart, the chief pyromancer whose hands clutched a torch. "Light the fires." Jaime, his white cloak trailing, stepped forward, his sword a golden blur. Rossart fell, blood pooling on the marble, his torch clattering harmlessly. Rhaegar faced his father, voice calm but unyielding. "Your reign ends, father, for the realm's sake." Aerys screamed as Sir Gerald Hightower dragged him to Meager's holdfast, his curses echoing through stone corridors. The Great Sept hosted Rhaegar's coronation, a hurried ceremony under golden arches. The High Septon's trembling hands placed the ruby-encrusted crown on Rhaegar's silver hair, and the small folk cheered, their voices a tide of hope. Yet whispers of Aerys's madness clung like damp rot, tainting the air. Tywin Lannister arrived with a host of Western men, his lion-emblazoned armor gleaming. "House Lannister serves the true king," he said, kneeling, but his eyes, cold as Casterly Rock's gold, betrayed ambition. Rhaegar, sensing the lion's hunger, offered Jaime a place at court, binding the Lannisters closer. That night, Varys brought darker tidings. Aerys's loyalists, led by Lord Chelsted, plotted to free the Mad King, and across the narrow sea, a Blackfire pretender stirred, backed by Illyrio Mopatis's gold. Rhaegar stood in the throne room, gazing at the dragon skulls lining the walls, their empty sockets mocking his fragile crown. "The dragon must rise," he whispered, "or all is lost." Snow dusted the Vale's jagged peaks, swirling around Eddard Stark as he led his battered Northmen through its treacherous passes. Robert Baratheon's death gnawed at him, a wound deeper than the Dornish spear that had slashed his arm, now bandaged but seeping. At Riverrun, Hoster Tully, his beard streaked with grey, hosted Ned in the Great Hall, its trout banners swaying. "The dragon has won, Eddard," Hoster said, his voice pragmatic over a goblet of Arbor gold. "Bend the knee or Winterfell burns." Jon Arryn, ensconced in the Erie's moonlit towers, sent a raven urging defiance. "Rhaegar is his father's son," the message read, tyranny cloaked in silver. Ned, torn between honor and vengeance, clutched ice, its Valyrian steel cold against his calloused palms. Lyanna's laughter haunted him, her cryptic words at Harrenhal, "Ice and fire, Ned, a song to save us all," a riddle burning in his mind. Rhaegar's raven arrived, offering pardon if Ned swore fealty. Ned burned the parchment in the hearth, its ashes curling like his resolve. Lyanna was alive, he knew, held in a Dornish tower by the prince who'd slain his friend. Scouts brought word of a Dornish host marching toward the Red Mountains, to a place called the Tower of Joy, its red stone whispered in taverns. Ned gathered 6 companions, Howland Reed, wiry and quiet, Martin Castle, loyal to the bone, and others, swearing to free Lyanna or die. By a campfire in the Vale's shadow, Ned traced the stark direwolf on his cloak, his breath misting. He recalled Robert's drunken laughter, Lyanna's defiant eyes, and whispered a prayer to the old gods. For Lyanna, he vowed, and for Robert's blood. The Tower of Joy shimmered under dawn's merciless sun, its red stone walls pulsing with heat. Inside, Lyanna Stark writhed in childbirth, her dark hair plastered with sweat, her cries echoing off the stone. Sir Arthur Dayne, dawn sheathed at his hip, stood guard at the door, his violet eyes scanning the horizon for threats. Sir Gerald Hightower, his armor dented from the Trident, murmured prayers to the Seven, his grizzled face taut. Rhaegar arrived, dust clinging to his black armor, his silver hair tangled from the ride. He knelt by Lyanna's side, taking her trembling hand. "Our son," he whispered, gazing at the babe she named Jon, his grey eyes a mirror of hers. Lyanna, pale as moonlight, clutched him. "He's the song, Rhaegar, the dragon and the wolf, protect him." Their marriage, sealed in secret before a weirwood in the Stormlands, bound them by love and prophecy, a vow to birth the prince that was promised. But her strength faded, blood staining the sheets. Hooves thundered outside, raising clouds of red dust. Ned Stark and his 6 companions breached the tower's perimeter, their blades drawn, ice gleaming in Ned's hands, Howland's spear poised. Rhaegar, refusing to let Lyanna's brother die, fought alongside Dayne and Hightower. The clash was brutal. Steel sang, sand drank blood. Dayne's dawn flashed like starlight, felling Martin Castle. Ned, fueled by grief, cut down Gerald with a single stroke of ice. Rhaegar's sword locked with Ned's, their breaths ragged. "For Lyanna," Rhaegar said, disarming him but sparing his life. Inside, Ned found Lyanna, her breath a whisper. "I loved him, Ned," she confessed, shattering his belief in her abduction. "Promise me, Jon," she died, her hand cold in his. Ned, cradling the babe, swore to raise him as his own, hiding his Targaryen blood. Rhaegar, tears streaking his dust-caked face, knelt by her body, his harp silent. "Her dream lives in you, Ned," he said, voice breaking. "Help me build it." The Iron Throne loomed in the red keep's great hall, its jagged blades glinting like a dragon's teeth, biting into Rhaegar's palms as he sat. King Rhaegar I Targaryen faced a fractured realm, his silver hair catching torchlight, his violet eyes shadowed. He pardoned most rebel lords, sending ravens to Jon Arryn, Hoster Tully and Ned Stark, but Arryn's defiance in the Vale festered like a plague. To bind the West, Rhaegar betrothed his daughter Rhaenys to Jaime Lannister, ignoring Elia Martell's quiet fury. Elia, her Dornish pride scorched by Rhaegar's love for Lyanna, stood in the hall, her olive skin pale, her dark eyes burning. "My daughter is no pawn," she said, voice low, before retreating to Sunspear with young Aegon, escorted by Dornish spears. Doran Martell's letter arrived, curt and cold, demanding concessions for Dorne's loyalty. Rhaegar announced a great council to reform Westeros, a permanent council of lords to check royal power, land redistribution for smallfolk, a standing army to face a northern threat he saw in dreams of ice and shadow. The court buzzed, lords like Mace Tyrell nodding eagerly, others like Lord Chelstead, an Ares loyalist, sneering. During a feast, Chelstead's men struck, their daggers flashing in candlelight. Jaime Lannister, his white cloak swirling, cut through the traitors, his sword a golden arc saving Rhaegar. Sir Arthur Dayne guarded the king, dawn unsheathed. Rhaegar's execution of Chelstead was swift, his voice ice. Treason dies, or we all do. The act chilled allies like Hoster Tully, who whispered of tyranny. Varys, his silks rustling, brought darker news. A Blackfire pretender, a boy named Aegon backed by Illyrio Mopatis, gathered exiles in Tyrosh. Rhaegar stood before Balerian's skull, its empty sockets a warning. The dragon must rise, he murmured, or the realm burns. The Eyrie perched like a white falcon above the clouds, its marble towers gleaming under moonlight. Jon Arryn, his face lined with resolve, stood in the high hall, its moon door yawning below. Rhaegar's victory is tyranny reborn. He told his lords, Yohn Royce, Horton Redfort, his voice echoing off weirwood thrones. Petter Baelish, his sly foster son, lingered in the shadows, whispering to Royce of power to be seized in chaos. The Vale could rule, not kneel, Baelish murmured, his green eyes glinting. When Sir Barristan Selmy arrived, his white cloak stark against the mountain snow, he offered peace, a seat on Rhaegar's council. Arryn refused, his blue eyes hard. No Targaryen chains the Vale, he said, dismissing Barristan with a wave. In the bloody gate's shadow, Vale knights ambushed Targaryen scouts, their falchion blades flashing. Blood stained the snow and Redfort's son fell, his scream swallowed by the wind. Arryn's resolve hardened, his banners raised for war. In Winterfell, Ned Stark cradled Jon, the babe's grey eyes a mirror of Lyanna's. Rhaegar's letter arrived, its words heavy. Your sister believed in my dream, Eddard, join me. Ned, torn between Lyanna's love and Arryn's call, hesitated in the godswood, the weirwood's red face watching. His bannermen, Greatjon Umber, Roose Bolton, clamoured for independence, their voices booming in the great hall. Catelyn Tully, newly arrived, watched Jon with suspicion, her auburn hair catching firelight. Whose child is he, Ned? She asked, her voice sharp. Ned's silence drove a wedge between them. In the Vale, Baelish smiled, his schemes weaving a web to trap them all. The Red Keep's great hall thrummed with voices, its dragon banners swaying in torchlight, the air thick with wine and tension. The great council of 284 AC drew lords from every corner. Ned Stark, grim in grey furs, his arm still bandaged. Hoster Tully, cautious, his trout cloak damp from travel. Tywin Lannister, his golden armour gleaming, his eyes cold as coin. Rhaegar, crowned and resplendent in black velvet, proposed sweeping reforms. A permanent council to balance royal power, land for small folk, an army to guard the north against a long night he saw in dreams. The realm must unite, he said, his voice a harp's note, or winter consumes us. Stannis Baratheon, sullen in Storm's End's name, bent the knee, his brother Robert's death a shadow on his stern face. Doran Martell, his olive skin taut, demanded justice for Alyr, his voice a desert wind. Dawn bleeds for your sins, your grace, he said, eyes unreadable. Chaos erupted at the feast, Aerys' loyalists striking with daggers in the candlelight. Jaime Lannister, his white cloak swirling, cut through the traitors, his sword a golden arc saving Rhaegar. Sir Arthur Dayne, dawn unsheathed, guarded the king, his blade a beacon. Rhaegar's execution of the plotters was swift, his voice ice. The dragon spares no treason. Ned, moved by Rhaegar's plea for unity, pledged the North's support, but only if its autonomy stood. Winterfell bows to no king's whim, he said, his grey eyes steady. Hoster Tully followed, wary but pragmatic. As the council closed, a raven brought dire news. A Blackfire fleet, led by a boy named Aegon, had sailed from Tyrosh, backed by Jon Arryn's Vale and Golden Company spears. The hall fell silent, the dragon's peace fraying like old silk. Sunspear's water gardens shimmered, their pools reflecting date palms and Alyr Martell's quiet grief. Rhaegar's love for Lyanna, his betrothal of Rhaenys to Jaime, had broken her, her Dornish pride a smouldering ember. Doran Martell, sipping wine in the old palace's mosaic hall, plotted with patience sharp as a spear. The dragon dishonours us, he told Oberyn, his voice low, his cane tapping the tiles. Oberyn, his dark eyes blazing, trained Dornish warriors in the sands, their spears glinting like vipers' fangs. Doran's ravens flew to Essos, probing the Blackfire pretender, a boy named Aegon, raised as a Targaryen by Illyrio Mepartis. Dragon or fraud, he may unseat Rhaegar, Doran mused, his fingers tracing a Sivas board. Illyr, torn between duty and betrayal, wrote to Rhaegar, her quill trembling. Our children deserve more, she pleaded. His reply, kind but distant, spoke of Lyanna's loss, wounding her further. When Sir Arthur Dayne arrived to negotiate peace, his white cloak stark against the desert, Oberyn ambushed him near the Boneway. For Illyr, Oberyn hissed, his spear drawing blood. Dayne's dawn flashed, holding him at bay, but the wound weakened the sword of the morning. News reached Sunspear. The Blackfire Aegon's fleet grew, Golden Company banners raised. Illyr, watching young Aegon play in the pools, wept, torn between her son and her brothers. Dawn teetered on rebellion, its sands thirsty for blood. Winterfell's godswood was a haven of silence, its weirwood's red eyes watching Eddard Stark as snow dusted his grey cloak. Jon, the babe he called his bastard, slept in the keep, his Targaryen blood a secret heavier than ice. Ned's bannermen, Greatjon Umber, roaring for war, Roose Bolton, his pale eyes calculating, demanded independence in the Great Hall, their voices echoing off stone wolves. Rhaegar's arrival, unannounced, stunned them. The king, silver hair catching torchlights, stood in the hall, his black armor traded for velvet. A threat comes from the north, he said, voice soft but urgent. White walkers, a long night foretold. Lyanna believed Eddard, help me save the realm. Ned, haunted by her death, saw sincerity in Rhaegar's violet eyes. He agreed to an alliance but demanded the North's autonomy. Winterfell kneels to no king, he said, his hand on ice. Catelyn Tully, betrothed to Ned, watched Jon with cold blue eyes, her auburn hair glowing in the firelight. Whose child is he, Ned? She asked in their chambers, her voice sharp as a blade. Ned's silence drove a wedge between them, her Riverland's pragmatism clashing with his honor. As Rhaegar departed, his retinue cutting through snow, a raven from Jon Arryn arrived. The Vale had allied with the Blackfire pretender, their ships joining the Golden Company. Ned gripped ice, his breath misting in the godswood. The old gods whispered of ice, and war loomed like a storm. Storm's End loomed, its granite walls battered by wind and war, its drum towers thundering defiance. The Blackfire pretender, a boy named Aegon, landed with the Golden Company, backed by Jon Arryn's Vale Knights and disaffected Stormlanders. Rhaegar, his black armor gleaming with rubies, led his host. Ned Stark's Northmen, their direwolf banners snapping, Tywin Lannister's Western men, gold cloaks gleaming, Stannis Baratheon's reluctant bannermen, their stag sigils faded. The battle raged under thunderclouds, war elephants trumpeting, arrows singing like deadly birds. Jaime Lannister's blade carved through foes, his white cloak stained red, his thoughts on Tywin's ambition and young Tyrion, safe in Casterly Rock. Ned's ice felled a Golden Company captain, his honor unyielding. Rhaegar, astride a black charger, met Aegon in the fray, his sword shattering the boy's dreams of a throne. But a stray arrow pierced Rhaegar's side, blood seeping through his armor, his rubies falling like tears. In a tent lit by flickering braziers, Rhaegar lay dying, his silver hair matted with sweat. He summoned Ned, his voice a whisper. "Jon is my heir," he said, legitimizing the babe as Jon Targaryen. "Prepare him for the long night." His eyes, clouded with visions of Lyanna and ice, closed forever. Ned, torn by duty, accepted the charge, his heart heavy. The epilogue found him in Winterfell's godswood, raising Jon as his own, his grey eyes watching the babe's first steps. Whispers of white walkers drifted from the wall, carried by rangers' tales. Tywin schemed for Jon's regency, Doran plotted in Dawn, and the North braced for a war no one believed. The song of ice and fire played on, its notes carried by a babe's cry and the wind's howl. The godswood of Winterfell was a frozen sanctuary, snow cloaking the weirwood's red leaves as Ned Stark knelt, his breath misting in the dawn chill. Jon Targaryen, now 5, played nearby, his dark curls and grey eyes a mirror of Lyanna's, though Ned called him his bastard to shield his true heritage. The North chafed under the Iron Throne's regency, led by Tywin Lannister, who ruled for the boy King Jon in King's Landing. Ned, named Warden of the North and a reluctant regent, faced mounting pressure from bannermen like Greatjon Umber, who demanded independence. "The dragon's cub is no king of ours," Umber roared in the great hall, his voice shaking the direwolf banners. Ned, gripping ice, tempered their fury, but his heart was heavy with Rhaegar's dying charge. Prepare Jon for the long night. In King's Landing, Tywin sat the Iron Throne's shadow, his golden gaze sharp. Jaime Lannister, now Lord Commander of the Kingsguard and betrothed to Rhaenys, chafed under his father's ambition. Jon is king, but you'd make him a lion, Jaime snapped during a council meeting, his white cloak stark against Tywin's crimson. Elia Martell, residing in the Red Keep with Aegon, remained a silent figure, her Dornish grace masking bitterness. Doran Martell from Sunspear sent cryptic letters hinting at unrest. A ranger's report from the wall reached Ned. Wildlings spoke of cold shadows moving in the haunted forest. Ned, haunted by Rhaegar's prophecy, sent men to reinforce Castle Black, but the south ignored the warnings. In the Godswood, Jon's laughter mingled with the wind's howl, and Ned prayed to the old gods for strength. The Red Keep's throne room glittered with torchlight, the Iron Throne a jagged silhouette as Tywin Lannister presided over the Regency Council. Jon Targaryen, a boy of 5, sat on a cushioned chair, his grey eyes wide but silent, a crown too large for his head. Tywin, in crimson and gold, proposed raising taxes to fund a standing army, claiming it would secure the realm. "The boy king needs strength," he said, his voice smooth as silk. Jaime, standing guard in his white cloak, clenched his fists, sensing his father's true aim, control over Jon's reign. Elia Martell, seated beside Aegon, spoke rarely, her dark eyes fixed on Tywin. "Dawn will not pay for Lannister spears," she said, her voice cutting through the hall. Whispers of her brother Doran's schemes reached Varys, who relayed them to Jaime in a shadowed corridor. "Sunspear stirs, sir." Varys murmured, and the Blackfire's ghost lingers. In Casterly Rock, young Tyrion Lannister, sharp-witted despite his dwarfism, pored over histories of Aegon the Conqueror, sensing his father's ambition. A letter from Tywin summoned him to court, hinting at a role in Jon's regency. Tyrion, wary, penned a cautious reply, his quills scratching late into the night. In King's Landing, Jaime confronted Tywin in the Tower of the Hand, their voices low but heated. "You'd make Jon your puppet," Jaime accused, his green eyes blazing. Tywin smiled, cold as gold. "Lannisters endure, boy. Dragons burn out." A tourney announced to celebrate Jon's name day masked Tywin's true intent, to parade Rhaenys and Jaime's betrothal, cementing Lannister power. But a raven from the wall brought grim news. A Night's Watch patrol vanished, leaving only frost-covered cloaks. Jaime, haunted by Rhaegar's warnings, slipped the message to Ned, urging vigilance. Winterfell's great hall echoed with the clink of tankards and the roar of northern lords, their direwolf banners swaying in the smoky air. Ned Stark, Warden of the North, faced mounting unrest. Great Jon Umber slammed his fist on the table, demanding independence. "Why bleed for a dragon cub?" he bellowed, his beard flecked with ale. Roose Bolton, his pale eyes unreadable, suggested caution, but his silence unnerved Ned. Catelyn, now Lady Stark, watched Jon with growing suspicion, her auburn hair catching firelight. "He's no son of yours," she whispered in their chambers, her voice sharp as a Tully trout. Ned, bound by his promise to Lyanna, said nothing, the lie a stone in his chest. Jon, playing with wooden swords in the yard, laughed, unaware of his Targaryen blood or the prophecy tied to his name. A ranger from the wall, Benjen Stark's friend Yoren, arrived with grim tidings. Wildlings fled south, speaking of white shadows and frozen corpses that walked. Ned, recalling Rhaegar's dreams of the long night, sent men and coin to Castle Black, but his bannermen scoffed. "Tales to scare children," Umber growled. Ned's dreams were haunted by Lyanna's dying words and Rhaegar's charge, urging him to prepare Jon. In the Godswood, he taught Jon to pray to the old gods, the boy's small hand in his. A letter from Jaime Lannister warned of Tywin's growing power and Doran's schemes. Ned, torn between north and south, vowed to protect Jon, even if it meant defying the Iron Throne. Sunspear's old palace glowed under a Dornish sun, its mosaic floors shimmering with tales of Nymeria. Doran Martell, leaning on his cane, plotted in the Tower of the Sun, his patience a blade honed over years. Rhaegar's betrayal of Elia, his love for Lyanna, Rhaenys' betrothal to Jaime fueled Dorne's resentment. Oberyn Martell, training warriors in the sandpits, cursed Rhaegar's name, his spear flashing like his temper. "The dragon's cub will not rule us," he spat, his dark eyes blazing. Doran, more subtle, corresponded with Illyrio Mopatis, seeking allies in Essos. Though the Blackfire pretender was dead, rumors of another claimant, a girl, perhaps Viserys' sister, stirred in Pentos. Dawn waits, Doran told Oberyn, his voice a desert whisper, but not forever. Elia, in King's Landing, sent letters to Doran, her quill trembling. Aegon must have a future, she wrote, her heart torn between her son and Dawn's pride. Oberyn, restless, led a raid on Stormlander caravans, claiming retribution for Robert's rebellion. Stannis Baratheon, now Lord of Storm's End, demanded justice, his stern face set like granite. A tense parley in the Red Mountains saw Oberyn and Stannis clash verbally, their banners viper and stag fluttering in the wind. News from the Wall reached Sunspear, a village beyond the gift burned, its ashes frozen. Doran, intrigued, sent spies north, suspecting Rhaegar's prophecies held truth. In Sunspear's water gardens, Elyr's daughter Arianne played, unaware of her father's schemes as Dawn's sands whispered of war. The Wall loomed, a 700-foot cliff of ice gleaming under a grey sky, its shadow chilling castle black. Lord Commander Jeor Mormont, the Old Bear, read reports of missing rangers, their cloaks found frozen in the haunted forest. Ned Stark's reinforcements, northern men and gold, bolstered the Night's Watch, but the brothers grumbled, doubting tales of White Walkers. Benjen Stark, first ranger, led a ranging beyond the Wall, his breath frosting as he tracked wildling trails. In a clearing, he found a circle of frozen corpses, their eyes carved out, arranged like a ritual. "The cold comes," a wildling captive whispered, trembling. Benjen, recalling Rhaegar's warnings, sent a raven to Winterfell, urging Ned to prepare. In Winterfell, Ned trained Jon in the yard, the boy's wooden sword clumsy but eager. Catelyn's coldness grew, her suspicion of Jon poisoning their marriage. "You honor a bastard over your trueborn," she said, her voice ice. Ned, bound by his vow, remained silent, his heart breaking. In King's Landing, Tywin tightened his grip, proposing Jaime as Jon's regent-in-waiting while Doran's spies infiltrated the court. A final raven from the Wall reached Ned. Benjen's ranging vanished, leaving only a frozen horn. Ned, standing in the godswood, felt the old god's warning. Jon, now 6, clutched his hand, unaware of his destiny. The long night loomed, and Westeros, divided, was blind to the ice. 15 years later, Winterfell's stone walls stood resolute under a sky heavy with snow, its great hall alive with the clamor of northern lords. Jon Targaryen, now 15, trained in the yard, his dark curls and grey eyes marking him as Ned Stark's bastard, though his true parentage, Rhaegar and Lyanna's son, remained Ned's heaviest secret. Jon's skill with a sword, honed by Sir Roderick Castle, drew whispers, his quiet intensity echoed Rhaegar's. Ned, greying at 33, faced mounting unrest. Greatjon Umber and Roose Bolton, ever fractious, demanded independence, their direwolf banners snapping in the wind. "The dragon cub's no king of ours," Umber roared, slamming his tankard. Catelyn, Lady Stark, watched Jon with cold eyes, her auburn hair streaked with silver. "He's no son of yours, Ned," she said in their chambers, her voice a blade. Ned, bound by his vow to Lyanna, offered only silence, their marriage a brittle shell. In King's Landing, Tywin Lannister's regency tightened its grip. Jon, summoned to court for his 16th name day, was to be crowned king, ending the regency. Jaime Lannister, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard and wed to Rhaenys, stood at Jon's side, his white cloak hiding a heart torn between duty and his father's ambition. Tywin, in crimson and gold, proposed a grand tourney to mark Jon's coronation, but his true aim was to wed Jon to a Lannister cousin, securing the throne. Elia Martell, now a shadow in the Red Keep, guarded her son Aegon, 17, her Dornish pride unyielding. Doran Martell's letters, arriving by Raven, hinted at rebellion, demanding Aegon's claim over Jon's. A ranger's report from the Wall chilled Ned. Benjen Stark, missing for years, was presumed dead, and wildling villages lay frozen, their inhabitants vanished. Ned, haunted by Rhaegar's prophecy, sent Jon to the Wall to learn of the Night's Watch, hoping to prepare him for the long night. In Winterfell's godswood, Ned knelt, Jon at his side, the weirwood's red eyes watching. "You're more than you know," Ned whispered, his heart breaking. The Red Keep's throne room glittered under 1,000 candles, the Iron Throne's jagged blades casting shadows like dragon teeth. Jon Targaryen, 15, sat uneasily, his simple black tunic stark against the court's silks. Tywin Lannister, regent in crimson, dominated the small council, his voice smooth as he proposed Jon's betrothal to a Lannister cousin, Joyhill. "A king needs a queen, your grace," Tywin said, his eyes cold as Casterly Rock's gold. Jaime, standing guard, clenched his sword hilt, his green eyes flashing. "Jon's no pawn, father," he said later in the Tower of the Hand, their voices low but heated. Tywin's smile was a blade. "Lannisters endure, Jaime, dragons falter." Tyrion Lannister, now 25, sharp-witted and scorned, arrived from Casterly Rock, his dwarfism mocked but his mind unmatched. "The throne's a dangerous seat, your grace," Tyrion told Jon in a candlelit library, his voice laced with irony. "Mind the lions." Elia Martell, her olive skin pale, watched Aegon train in the yard, his Dornish grace a contrast to Jon's northern steel. She met Doran's envoy, Arianne Martell, in secret, her niece's eyes fierce. "Dorne will not bow to a stark bastard," Arianne said, hinting at rebellion. Varys, ever the spider, whispered to Jaime of Doran's plans. Dornish spears masked in the boneway, backed by Associ sellswords. A tourney for Jon's name day drew lords from across Westeros. Stannis Baratheon, stern and unyielding, led Stormlanders, his loyalty to Jon fragile after Robert's death. A Night's Watch recruiter, Yoren, arrived with grim news. A ranging found a frozen weirwood grove, its branches carved with runes, and a ranger's body with eyes of ice. Jaime, haunted by Rhaegar's warnings, sent word to Ned, urging him to bring Jon south for safety. In the throne room, Jon gazed at Balerian's skull, feeling the weight of a crown he did not want. The wall loomed, a 700-foot cliff of ice glinting under a moonless sky, its shadow chilling castle Black's ramshackle halls. Jon Targaryen, sent by Ned to learn of the Night's Watch, stood atop the wall, his breath frosting, his grey eyes scanning the haunted forest. Lord Commander Jeor Mormont, the Old Bear, welcomed him gruffly, his black cloak heavy with frost. "The wall's no place for kings," Mormont said, but Jon's quiet resolve impressed him. Rangers spoke of horrors, wildling villages empty, their fires frozen, footprints vanishing into snow. Jon, trained by Ned, felt Rhaegar's prophecy stir in his blood, though he knew not his true name. Arranging with Quhor in half-hand revealed a frozen lake, its surface cracked with symbols like those at the Weirwood Grove. "The cold comes," Quhor muttered, his hand on his sword. In Winterfell, Ned faced rebellion. Roose Bolton, his pale eyes gleaming, suggested bending to Tywin's will while Greatjon Umber demanded war. "The North kneels to no lion," Umber roared. Catelyn, her faith in Ned shattered, sent a letter to her father, Hoster Tully, seeking Riverland's support. A raven from Castle Black confirmed the worst. A wildling host, led by Mance Rayder, fled south, claiming White Walkers hunted them. Ned, in the Godswood, prayed before the Weirwood, Jon's face merging with Lyanna's in his mind. He sent Robb, his trueborn son, to rally the northern lords, while preparing to join Jon at the wall. A letter from Jaime warned of Dornish unrest and Tywin's plans to seize Jon's crown. Ned, gripping ice, knew his vow to Rhaegar bound him to a war he could not avoid. Sunspear's old palace glowed under a blazing sun, its mosaic floors shimmering with tales of Nymeria's conquests. Doran Martell, his gout-ridden legs propped on a cushion, plotted in the Tower of the Sun, his cane tapping a rhythm of patience. Rhaegar's betrayal of Elia and Jon's rise as king fueled Dorne's resentment. Oberyn Martell, his spear flashing in the sandpits, rallied Dornish lords, his voice venomous. "The dragon's cub steals Aegon's birthright," he spat, his dark eyes blazing. Doran, more subtle, had secured Associ sellswords, their ships anchored in Planky Town. Arianne, now 22, carried his orders, her beauty a weapon as she courted Stormlander lords disloyal to Stannis Baratheon. "Dawn rises for Aegon," she whispered to a lord in a shadowed inn. In King's Landing, Elia confronted Tywin, her voice steady despite her frail frame. "Aegon is Rhaegar's son, not your puppet," she said, her Dornish accent sharp. Tywin's smile was cold, but Jaime, overhearing, felt a pang of guilt, his loyalty to Jon wavering. Tyrion, now a council advisor, warned Jon of Dorne's plans, his wit cutting through courtly lies. "Snakes bite quietly, your grace," he said, his mismatched eyes keen. Oberyn led a Dornish host to the Boneway, clashing with Stannis' Stormlanders. Blood soaked the sands, and Stannis, wounded, sent a desperate raven to Jon, urging unity. A Night's Watch raven reached Sunspear. The others had attacked a wildling camp, leaving frozen corpses with blue eyes. Doran, intrigued, sent Oberyn north to investigate, suspecting Rhaegar's prophecy held truth. In the Water Gardens, Arryn watched her cousins play, her heart torn between duty and doubt, as Dawn's rebellion ignited. The wall stood like a sentinel, its ice glinting under a blood-red dawn as the others struck. Shadows moved in the haunted forest, their eyes glowing blue, their blades of ice cutting through Night's Watch rangers. Jon Targaryen, 15, fought alongside Lord Commander Mormont, his longsword, forged by Winterfell's smiths, clashing against a White's frozen flesh. "For the Watch," Jon shouted, his breath frosting, his grey eyes fierce. Ned Stark, arriving with a northern host, wielded ice, his strikes precise but desperate. The others' advance was relentless, their cold silencing the wind. A wildling, Tormund Giantsbane, joined the fight, his axe hewing Whites, his roars defiant. "The dead walk." He bellowed, blood streaking his beard. In King's Landing, Tywin rallied southern lords, his ambitions sidelined by the wall's desperate pleas. Jaime, leading Jon's Kingsguard, escorted the boy king north, his white cloak tattered but his resolve firm. Elia with Aegon followed, her Dornish pride yielding to fear of the long night. Doran, informed by Oberyn's reports, sent Dornish spears, their banners joining Stannis Baratheon's stags and Ned's direwolves. Tyrion, against Tywin's wishes, joined the host, his wit rallying wavering lords. "If we die, let's die warm," he quipped, his mismatched eyes gleaming. At the wall, Jon found a cache of dragonglass buried by Benjen's lost ranging, and its blades turned Whites to ash. In a final stand at Castle Black, Jon faced another, its ice blade shattering his sword. Ned, wounded, threw ice to Jon, who struck true, the creature's scream a winter's howl. The others retreated, but the cost was heavy. Mormont fell, Ned's wounds festered, and Castle Black's walls cracked. In the epilogue, Jon, now 16, was crowned in Winterfell's great hall, his Targaryen heritage revealed to a stunned realm. Ned, dying, whispered, "You're the song, Jon," his hand cold. James swore to protect him, Elia blessed him for Aegon's sake, and Tyrion, named Hand, vowed to guide him. Doran bent the knee, his rebellion quelled by the long night's truth. Stannis, scarred, pledged Storm's End's loyalty. As snow fell, Jon gazed north, dragonglass at his side, knowing the others would return. The song of ice and fire played on, its melody carried by a young king's resolve and a realm's fragile unity. To, 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 to.